So, time to cover my Module 25 Paladin Healer build. Despite not getting any updates with Module 25 as promised, they still perform really well. So much so that min-maxers really want to have a Paladin Healer in the group in the new latest trial. And the main reason is because those added shields, the continual reapplication of them, and the benefit to give a tank massive survivability. That can be quite important when running against bosses like Storvald in Phase 3. He absolutely hits you like a truck. And then in Phase 4 and Phase 6, those beholders also hit you pretty hard. And having a Paladin Healer to give that protection to the tank, along with then just adding that extra layer of protection via shields, helps a lot. And in this trial, we have been running with 3 healers, a bard, a cleric, and the paladin, and that is for the survivability. Many groups don't really suffer with dealing damage, so having more survivability so you can get to the end without skulls is really what you want to be going for. Now, paladin healers have that ability to add shields. No other healer has it as such readily available. You have the bard, which yes can do it on their daily power, but they can't use that all too often when you're only fighting one enemy. Now the ideal combo will be to run with a bard and a paladin, still making the paladin healer as one of the top choices to run with. And that is again in a trial. In dungeons, in lower level content, you're going to struggle an awful lot more on a paladin healer compared to any other healers. That's just the nature of how it works, and you need to have a group that knows what they're doing, can play safe and avoid taking unnecessary damage for it to work, like in Master Temple of the Spider. You can complete all content with a paladin healer, you just need a more focused team. You can't make up so much for all the mistakes of other players like you can on a bard or a cleric. So let's move on to my build. The build is focused on making sure you have as big shields as possible. This will make sure you're giving your team as much survivability as you can. Now, on top of that, we will be having some team support, which we'll cover. Team support being benefits that are just going to contribute to your team in terms of dealing damage, because in the end, the faster you can kill the boss, the faster you can move on, the less damage everybody takes, the quicker you get to the end chest. Now there is a balance, and we'll cover that. So if you want a quick look at my stats, this is outside of a party. In a party, we will have 90% power. We'll have 90% critical strike when in combat and attacking a foe, and we'll have pretty much 90% crit severity if we make a quick adjustment. I'll go over that in race and ability scores. And then our outgoing healing will be 90% as well when we're in a full party with this armor and boots. So let's dive in to my powers. The powers I recommend, the setup is just like so. However, I do recommend this aura. To show my stats, I did run with the crit one, and that is because you can generally run with a paladin tank, and I would recommend it, which would then have this aura. There isn't much better options they can use. So you start with the at-wills, and generally I run with the Valorous Strike. Just for animation cancelling, you can hold down your at-will, and then you can spam your shield, and you will animation cancelling it, allowing you to get more action points quicker to be able to cast more daily powers. As for our secondary at-will, we use Divine Fulmination, and the main reason is to proc Vistani. You could have the Grace Ring as well. If somebody in your team isn't using it, you could have Illustrious Grace and stack that debuff to provide more damage to the team. Only one person can use it, and if you're in a trial, there's like 4 people who could use it. And then I don't use Cure Wounds, but if you are running in a dungeon or such, I would recommend it to top up people's hit points if you really need to. For encounter powers, our main heal abilities is Divine Shelter, and you use this when you want to heal like 4, 5 or more targets, because it will just give everybody this shield, no divisions. Because the second power I would use is Divine Touch. Now this does divide, and I would recommend using both in a trial like Gzemnid's Reliquary, because people a lot of the time you need to spread out, and you can save somebody, giving them a clutch heal. If they get this disintegration beam, this laser beam from the boss, they might take excessive damage and need a little bit more care and attention. So having the ability to like quick cast a heal on somebody, giving them a pretty decent shield, can be very useful. You just don't want to use it on like more than 2 people, otherwise you're better off just having used Divine Shelter and heal everybody. And then you would use Sacred Weapon just for the divinity regen. It will also reduce the damage you take, which can be useful. And then Circle of Divinity also for the divinity regen. You just use Sacred Weapon like this. You don't have to attack, it's all passive. And then you can use the circle. Unfortunately, you do have to stand in it. And yes, it will provide you a boost to your outgoing healing, but I don't recommend relying on that boost because you can't have this active all the time. And if you're in content where you need to move around a lot, well, being limited to that area isn't really too feasible. That's the main 4 encounter powers I would use. Otherwise, you do have alternatives. Bond of Virtue I don't see as very necessary to heal a tank at all. Cleansing Touch, it's a single target cleanse ability. Other healers just have a lot easier time with their AoE cleanses. And you do have some stun effects like Burning Light you can use to stun enemies pretty often, along with Banishment when you're against lots of enemies. For your daily powers, you mainly want to be using 3 of them. Shield of Faith, if you have no Paladin tank in the group. If you have a Paladin tank, they'll generally be spamming Shield of Faith all the time. Then you can have like Lay on Hands as a backup clutch heal if somebody gets really low, and you could proc this on them. But usually you want to save for Sanctuary for when everybody goes to take a big damaging hit. That would be something in like a hypo or immolation blast, and you all huddle and absorb the damage. This will reduce everybody's damage by 10% and then also heal them over time. It's pretty much your actually best heal. Just it's limited to an area, and you do have to do nothing. You have to press it and do nothing. If you press an at will or anything, it will cancel this bubble and it'll be gone. You won't have the effect. So if I like block and walk away, then I cancel it. Can be annoying. And otherwise, again, Lay on Hands or Shield of Faith. If there's no Paladin tank and everybody's spread out, Shield of Faith is good for just a little bit survivability and increasing their incoming healing, so your shields are that little bit better. For the mechanics, you just have your block ability where you can absorb incoming damage. It's up to 40% of your maximum hit points, so you basically have 40% more hit points when you use it. It'll regenerate over time, and it'll also allow you to be a bit immune to control effects, so you'll be resistant to like knocks, stuns, dazes, etc. Otherwise, you have your Channel Divinity, which places this Aura of Divinity, this angel wings, when you target somebody who's in your party, or you look at the sky and just click tab, it'll put these wings on your target. And those wings allow you to cast your Hand of Divinity on them, which is like 1,000 magnitude heal power, and then gives a ton of shield to the target if it critically hits. So that's like not a crit, and when we do critically hit, you can see, yeah, there it gets to like 80% of your maximum hit points. So pretty massive. That's like 800k, a bit more. It will be affected by the target's incoming healing, your stats, and so on. It'll also be dependent on how long you channel it for. Like if I only channel it for like half a second, it's not going to be very big. The longer you channel for it, the bigger the shield will be and the more cost it will be for your divinity. So maximum cost 140. But luckily you can use a feat to make it have a free cost every now and again. Then for our class features, I recommend Composure and Aura of Restoration. The others are not too useful. You do have one where when you're using that Hand of Divinity, when you're channeling it, you receive like a shield. This can be helpful in like dragon hunts when you're getting knocked around the place and you don't want the dragon to cancel your Hand of Divinity. And outside of that, I don't believe Timely Intervention is all too useful. Maybe in a group where you take a ton of damage and yeah, you need to make sure you heal them back up. Usually people are at like 50% HP or they're dead. We go to Feats, and you totally just want to take this selection I have here. There is a, either or in regards to the 4th set of Feats. Coalescence can be useful if, again, you're in a group, like trying to heal through a dungeon or something, where people take an awful lot of damage. Using your Shield of Faith and then being able to cast lots of heals to just make sure they're at full HP can be helpful. I would recommend checking it out in like a dungeon or something. It's just, in most cases, it's not that needed. You can look through the selection of feats here, and absolutely Prayer of Opportunity is great. So like when you're casting your heals, you have a chance to trigger it. You will notice it when you get a dotted outline on your tab ability. So you see it right there. That means our next channel of this hand means that it's not going to cost us any divinity, which is great. Then Enduring Spirit, of course, no point for the other one. That's some hybrid damage build. And yeah, then absolutely a Mystery of Warding. It just increases the effectiveness of your shields, makes them a lot bigger. So as you saw with my stats, they're looking like so. This is again outside of a party. Normally you will have 90% power because of the tamed Velociraptor that you have right here. That'll give you like 15% from 4 other people using this, and then you will have somebody else using like Mystic Aura that'll give us an extra 1%. I believe we can also use an Invocation Blessing to gain 1%, and there we're at 75%. Then our Crit Strike, it's a teeny bit low at 81.3%. Again, if you're in a party with a Paladin tank, they'll have the extra 2% for everybody. That'll get you 83%. And then the new Combat Enchantment, Lightning Flash, will get us another 7.5% whenever we're attacking our enemy. Very easy to maintain, don't have to attack all too much. And there you go, sweet 90s. For your outgoing healing, you're at 74%, and you will get another 6% when in a full party due to this armor piece. And you get that remaining 10% by being in a party with these boots. Your priority in terms of focusing on stats when you're building up your character is your power and outgoing healing. Don't neglect either of them. And lastly, it's like crit severity and finally critical strike. Generally, you want to focus on crit severity first because that actually affects your heals. The crit chance it's the chance for your heals to actually critically heal. And you do have the benefit again of the feat, critical touch, where whenever you like cast the heal, you have that chance that it gets a dotted outline and it guarantees critically heals everybody the next time you cast it. Very nice. So that's your stats. We move on to our gear and you can see the setup. So the headpiece here provides your divinity regeneration. Very good. You can get it to mythic. That provides 20%. That just comes originally from your North Dark Reaches from doing your Master Temple of the Spider. You obtain it just here, this version. And then again, you can go and upgrade it through Mensa Baranzin to Mythic. And yeah, alternatives you can use is just gear that's going to give you stats like the Raincatcher, and then other options like your Garistro and other headpieces from Dragon Hunts that would give you crit and crit severity. The armor piece, highly recommend it, comes from Dragon Hunts, the superior plate, just a whole bunch of outgoing healing. Alternative is a raindrop from your Vault of Stars, but make sure to do Dragon Hunts, get this. From Dragon Hunts again, the Superior Crushers. It doesn't really work how it says it does. You only need one person from your party to be 30 feet or further away. And 30 feet's not that big at all. Like you can see, for example, the radius of our Bane is like 15 feet. So from one end to the other, that's 30 feet. You only need to have one teammate further than that away, and you gain the extra power and defense. So you get survivability along with that. Weapons, highly recommend either Feywood or the mastered versions. They basically just give you the bonus of a 2% outgoing damage to your teammates, outgoing healing, and incoming damage reduction. And you can see that just up here. You'll have in a party, usually for endgame, 5 people using this, and then you all gain 10% of all 3 benefits. Very good, very powerful. Just get it from the auction house. Again, cheaper option will be the mastered ones. No need to get +1 versions. The item level gain is nothing. Just get it if you can get it for free or if you do the grinding yourself. And the boots just come from Seals of the Dragon. We get these when we're in a party. We get 10,000 outgoing healing. That's why it gives us 10%. And then we're at 84%. And then 6% from the armor to 90%. For our neck, waist, and artifact set, you can see we are running the Vistani set. And this gives us that, yeah, Vistani bonus of causing our target to take 5% more damage for 5 seconds. Now the way you trigger this is through a bug. Divine Fulmination. I guess this could get fixed at any point, but hopefully not. Basically, you cast it on the target and you can see you gain that little icon on them, which is your Vistani, which is like the Taroka icon, this one right here, which means they take 5% more damage from all your teammates. And that's what I mean by having team support so they can deal more damage. You can see we don't need the extra stats, we're at 90% of everything, so why not? We can use that, increase the speed of the run, everybody's damage, and get through it much quicker, and all the less healing we'll have to do. Then we have the Ring of Obligation, that comes from Toss, and then we have the Glowing Restoration Ring, just comes from your Masterwork again, so you'll have to get this from the auction house. Most cases. For our shirt, that just comes from Dragonbone Vale mini bosses, or again the auction house. Gives us a bunch of outgoing healing. Try get this one, it gives outgoing healing and awareness stat as well. And then the pants gives us the critical strike, come from Dragon Hunts. Highly recommend it. Now we go to the modifications on all this gear. The headpiece there, we got critical severity, and I believe we got crit severity on all the armor here as well, just to get that rating nice and high. Okay, we have 1 power. Then for the weapons, we have for the main hand, we have cure wounds, just in case we use that. There's no point in any of the others. And then on the offhand, you can see we have action point gain, and then we have just bonus critical strike rating. Then for our neck, rings, and waist, you can see it's just awareness everywhere. There's nothing better. Then for our enchantments tab, you can see this is what we're running with. I try to run with all the same enchantments that I have done in all my previous builds, just so that I don't have to upgrade anything new. I believe I have 1 extra garnet here. It shouldn't be a big deal if you use a jade here instead. We drop a teeny bit in crit. We should still be at 90% there, because 7.5% plus 8.25% is 90%, and it'll just give us a little bit more outgoing healing that we don't really need. But yeah, either way it works. For our overloads, I would recommend a resiliency of the depth instead of bulwark of brimstone, just reducing the damage you take by 5%. And then a devil's precision for the 5% crit chance. Then the mythic lightning flash, again for the crit chance, the crit strike. However, it does have a bonus 10% increase to your damage instead of something defensible like flash freeze, where it reduces the damage you take, or fortified nature, again reduces the damage you take, or soul shield. I just don't see any of these as all too useful on now a healer, because none of them really give you benefit. They never did anyway. Flash freeze was somewhat useful with 100% proc rate. It doesn't have that anymore. It's only 20%, so not very feasible on a healer anymore. So you can use the lightning flash. Just be aware, if you're suffering to survive, make sure to switch to something more defensive that has the 10% damage reduction. You can always get the new Mythic Refulgent Fortification as well. It has that 10% damage reduction, and it also has a neat benefit for the person you heal with. Let's say either your at will or you heal for your tab. So if I heal myself from my tab, I'll gain the bonus. Well, I should. I mean, I will if I have the wings. There we go. If I have the wings on me, see the top left, then I also gain the Refulgent bonus, which gives me the movement speed bonus. So my movement speed 63%. Cast this, and there we go, 78%. Doesn't last very long, and so I don't really see it as such a big deal, especially when it's only 5% damage reduction. You just being able to give your tank a massive shield is gonna make up for anything that this can, really, and the extra crit chance there can be a bit more useful for you to get your stats to be able to like have then like Vistani and your armor break and so on. For the bonus one, I run movement speed. Not so important, but movement speed again will help you get places. You are a paladin, and you do not have a dodge or shift ability. You only have this block. So getting out of red zones quickly can be a bit of a struggle. And sometimes you really need to, or they'll kill you. So having movement speed helps a lot. For the artifacts, you can just run anything with high item level, but again, try and get the ones that have bonuses to your teammates, like the blades that supports your team with dealing more damage against the target. Also has the added effect of reducing the enemy's damage, so that'll help. And then you can see these are just ones with higher item level. The wand, yes, it's good, but you won't be able to obtain that for quite a while until people start farming that new trial. And not so important, you can again just use something else with 1200 item level. Just check the stats and again try focus on ones that give power, crit severity, crit strike, and outgoing healing. I don't believe any will actually give outgoing healing, but of course then you have your Taroka deck. Again, the list to have all of like the debuff artifacts to increase your party's damage is here. Make sure you have a decent selection. So now we move on to our race and ability scores. I'm running Aasimar. You can run Wood Elf, you could run the Half Orc for the crit severity, and you could also run Human. I don't recommend Human too much because it'll only give you like total of 4%. And there's of course also the Dragonborns. The metallic one being a little bit superior to the standard one. For the ability scores, you want to focus on just dexterity and wisdom. Again, I'm not sure why I have increased crit severity. It could be because this ring and my proximity to the dummies, but generally I miss 1%, and I would change the 2 ability score points that I had put in charisma upon building this character originally. So if you're starting fresh, make sure to just put them all on dex and whiz if you're going for a healer. So now we move to our companions, and you can see the setup here. Again, with your summoned companion, you're compromising. You are team support. You're giving that support to your team so they deal increased damage. You have a bunch of options you can use. Again, I do have a list here. You want to have like Spine Devil, Dritz, Shooter, and then like the Black Death Scorpion and the Lion as kind of the best ones there. You can also use Brunner for survivability. Angel of Protection will be getting updated and should be giving survivability to the team. So just be aware of that. You can see my companion equipment, not exactly ideal, but it does the job. You don't exactly need more stats, like my ratings, crit strike, crit severity. Power, you don't need any more of. You can't get it on companion gear anyway. Outgoing healing, yes, we could do with like 2,000 more, but we'd still be over capped on the amount of outgoing healing. That could allow us to switch the ring to something else, but we'll go over that near the end of the video where we look at future updates. But yeah, we're just using this piece for crit severity, this piece for outgoing healing and crit strike, and this piece for outgoing healing. We didn't need any more crit strike, so we just took this one with added incoming healing. Again, with your companion enhancement, we are using a team support one, like armor break. The other viable ones for increasing your party's damage is dulled senses, vulnerability, and kind of slowed reactions. I don't recommend it too much these days, especially when people are getting so much accuracy. You do have one other one I would recommend, which is weapon break for adding survivability to your team by reducing their critical severity. There is no other survivability one right now that is as good as that. The other ones are just a chance to reduce the enemy's damage, like reducing the enemy's accuracy, reducing the enemy's crit chance, and so on. They're not exactly reliable to increase your team's survivability. If the boss is just going to crit everybody and one shot them, you'd be better off making it so that that crit damage is less with weapon break. And then you can see the bonuses: the wolf for the crit severity, the tamed raptor for the added power, massive bonus there, the golden bullet for the outgoing healing. Again, you can make do by having alternatives like the quickling and other ones that give outgoing healing. We have the fawn with crit chance and power, and we have the compy for, again, the power. Again, you could totally switch the fawn to utility. Instead of the comp, you have like the baby deep crow. There's a bunch of varying options you can use there, mixing these stats around and optimizing yourself. So we move to our mounts. In our stable here, you want to be using a combat power that's team support. Again, I have a nice list here. However, I need to update it. I need to remove the Noble Pegasus and the Pegasus from being different separate options. Be aware they do not stack anymore. That got fixed. And I need to add the Balgora. The Balgora is a new mount you can pick up from the appointment vendor, which can provide 11% damage to your team. And I recommend it if, again, you're running 5 supports in the group, because normally you'll just have the Clips, Lion, Swarm, a King of Spines or T-Rex, and then the Pegasus as your main for like a trial or dungeon. You just want to have a Clips and the Swarm. So try and make sure you have most of those mounts then for the added support. And again, you'll use those during the artifact call. For your equip powers, there are 3 you kind of want to have. You want to have Runic Aura, or you want to have Pack Tactics, or you want to have Mystic Aura. Mystic Aura comes from the Myconid Bullet mount. The Pack Tactics comes from the new Ebon Riding Lizard. And I believe Runic Aura will most cheaply come from the Manticore here in the trade bar store, or I guess the auction house, depending on what people price listed as. In our stable, we have our insignia bonuses, and I highly recommend 2 Gladiator's Guile, 3 Shepherd's Devotion. You could run 3 Gladiator's Guile and then just 2 Shepherd's Devotion. That's entirely feasible, and maybe you want to go with that instead. But basically, Gladiator's Guile increases your movement speed. That's the most important thing. 10% for the first one, 5% for the second one, 15%. Shepherd's Devotion increases your movement speed as well, but only when you cast the daily power. 10% for the first one, 5% for the next one, and 2.5% for the next one. So that's 18.5% movement speed to your entire team whenever you cast the daily power. And if you're using animation cancelling to like use your at will and block alternating, you can get your daily power back really quickly, like within 20 seconds at least, especially when you're stacking some AP gain sources. And so you can be spamming dailies pretty often. Again, like you could just be spamming your Shield of Faith. Of course, depending on the content, you might want to be saving a daily power for the mitigation. You can time it right so that you know when to get your daily power for when. But yeah, just check my movement speed. We have 68.5%. Use our daily power, and now we're at that 86.5%. So it's great. And it stacks with other players. I'll make a video to prove that and show and so on, that multiple people can use that effect to like stack off each other, and you can end up with pretty insane amounts of movement speed. Can be useful again in the new trial, specifically when you need to be moving around the place nice and quickly. So I would highly recommend those bonuses. Yes, okay, we have the new mount like the Ebon Riding Lizard, which would give us Mender's Covenant, a bunch of stats for healing, critical strike, crit severity, alcohol healing, and power. But we only need 4 ratings to get to maximum, so it's not a big deal at all. Like, we pretty much get those ratings capped again when we have all of our buffs. Like, we get that 10,000 alcohol healing from these boots, and then that is at 82,000. That's already capped. And then the power we get from, again, the Tamed Raptor, so we are also capped. So we don't need any extra. So there's no point in the new mount, in my opinion. Just go with these older bonuses, and I've made a document where I covered all of the new mounts: the Ebon Riding Lizard, Balgora, the Maltese Tiger, Red Dragon Wings, Golden Ridge Drake, Armored Pale Horse, and then also the Gilded Goose. And none of them will give Shepherd's Devotion or Gladiator's Guile, so none of them are useful. But they will be when we get ones that give Shepherd's Devotion and Gladiator's Guile. I'll be sure to be trying to obtain them, update these, then have 4 insignia slots and have an extra insignia, have some extra item level. That is about it then for my build. The last thing to mention would be, of course, our consumables, the buffs that we provide just here from food and temporary things. So in terms of the food we're using Squash Soup for the crit and crit severity, Flask of Potency, Wildstorm Elixir, and then Zurek. This is the guild food for the outgoing healing. Simply get your elixirs from your Vault of Piety just here. You get the Flask of Potency through crafting. You can get it very cheap in the auction house. Squash Soup, on the other hand, pretty expensive. You might want to just not use it when you're running any content that's not too difficult, and make sure to keep an eye out for the summer festival and get your grind done there to obtain a ton of this, all you need for like the next year. For my belt items, you can see we are of course using a Stone of Health, really necessary for endgame content where you take big hits, and yeah, even being a healer, you sometimes just not enough to heal yourself through that. And then a Wondrous Dragon just for the action point gain. Not really any other options, to be honest, you can use as a healer. And then the Forger's Box. Of course you want to get it to Mythic. I just haven't put the grind in, and there wasn't really any real need, and there hasn't been yet, but it gives the 2.7% power. It will give 3% on Mythic. And that is about it. You want to look what I look like? We'll quickly go over appearance. That is what I'm using. And with the new trial, if you are able to go and beat it, well, you could end up with changing your setup a little bit. Not much at all, to be honest. We just have this new ring here, the Lothian Aberrants. It gives us a bunch of crit severity and it also gives us the alchemy healing rating. And then I switch to like this headpiece, these boots, and then also have the grace ring for the debuff so we can provide even more team support. And then of course we still have the Vistani armor break, summoned companion, and so on. We are having companions though as the Black Dragon Houndstone for the crit, and then the Quickling here as well. The rest do just stay the same, I believe. Everything in mounts and so on. And that again still gives us the stats we need to cap. You got that crit severity, got the crit strike again with the enchantment, and you got the outgoing healing with the armor, and then you got the power with being Mystic Aura and the Raptor. And yeah, that allows you to run with Illustrious Grace. It's even a little bit more extra damage to the team and still remain with all these stats. And again, enchantments just a little bit adjusted here with 2 cobalts for the crit severity. So again, despite Paladin Healers not getting any updates with this new module, they'll still be one of the best healers in endgame trials. In dungeons, they suffer a bit. Yes, when they're alone. In a trial, you're going to have a bard or a cleric, sometimes a warlock, depending on the content, who's going to be able to make up for the lack of heal over time that you have. You have a lot of burst healing and shield potential. You can prevent people from dying to one hits, one shots because of those shields you can give people. And you can provide massive support to your tanks by nearly doubling the amount of hit points they have through this freaking insane shield. Massive thank you again to all of these channel members. You can support me by clicking the join button for as little as €1 a month. So we'll see you guys around. Goodbye for now.